Yeah, so we're live. Um, my name is Emeka Ogboh, and I was the theme selector for the year for this WLD 2016, the World Listening Day. I'll just talk briefly on how I came up with the theme "Sound Lost and Found." I was contacted by Dan Godson in December last year to propose the theme for the World Listening Day 2016. And prior to this email, I have been exploring the archives for different purposes. One of the projects I was working on was a commission for the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. And I was looking for audio from 1963 opening ceremony for the African Union. I wanted to use this audio for my sound installation for this project, and that required a lot of digging in the archives, especially the Ethiopian radio station. That was where I ended up finding the materials for this installation. So the archive has really played a role recently for me, in recent times for me in my sound art practice. And also, I was in Berlin on a residency, and I was really interested in how the city sounded in the past. Coming from Lagos and spending time in Berlin, which happened to be a more quiet city compared to Lagos, sort of aroused my interest on how cities sounded in the past. So I was also digging into the archives of Berlin, trying to listen or hear how the city sounded in the past. This also led me to trying to discover what Lagos of the past sounded. So for that, I was asking a lot of older generation of Lagosians about this thing, about how the city sounded in the past. So in general, this whole thing pointed to exploring the archives for me. So that's how I started thinking about what could be a very good theme for the World Listening Project 2016. And I initially came up with the idea of having a theme called Lost Sounds, because I was on a journey of discovering lost sounds of different cities. But I also have to commend Eric Leonardson, who came up with a poetic suggestion. Or instead of lost sound, we can make it sounds lost and found. That was much more poetic in that sense. So basically, the World Listening Day 2016 theme, Sounds Lost and Found, calls on reminiscing, listening, and observing what changes in our soundscapes have occurred in recent decades. Be it in language, nature, technology, music, or even silence. Silence is also important in this sense because a lot of places are losing its silence. So the theme ultimately encourages a deep oral attention to our surroundings through the recognition of the variables that define the acoustic ecology of our lived environment, and a recognition that sounds of the past are different from sounds of the future, of the present and the future. This exploration of the archives, or this theme in general, put my work with Lagos soundscape in a different perspective, I have to say, because I started thinking more about what we are doing in general as field recorders, documenting and recording our cities in different ways. Where I live in Lagos at the moment has changed in the past 7 years since I moved there. When I moved there initially, there were wildlife running around some of the unbuilt areas of this place, but now they are no longer there anymore. And this had to do with the constructions going on at the moment. Real estate is expanding, they're building more houses and trying to accommodate the expanding population of the city. So in these ways, we've pushed away these animals, these birds. We can no longer hear them. They do not stay there anymore. So the city, Lagos, is undergoing a lot of infrastructural changes in this sense. And what I've been recording I started putting that in perspective. These will be the archive materials of the future, in the sense that maybe we have to look back, or maybe a generation in 100 years may decide to figure out how how the past in this city sounded, and they have to reference these materials, you know. And at the moment, been exploring the archives of the Ethnological Museum in Berlin. I've discovered that they had recordings from Africa dating back from 1900. And this is really the sound that I put up for the World Listening Day 2016, because some of these sounds are historical, in the sense that you find recordings from Congo, Cameroon, sub-Saharan Africa. And maybe some of these recordings, or some of this, they were mostly musical recordings of music, instruments, and voices, dialects, and languages. The voices and the dialects that you find in these languages may still be existing today, but the music is still something I'm exploring, if some of these instruments are still existing, because many of these instruments were made from wood and also skins of animals. And due to the man's activities with nature, maybe they do not, some of these forests have been depleted, and maybe these instruments may not exactly exist the way they used to in the past, or maybe in the future they may stop existing if all the forests are depleted and some of these animals are pushed back. So what I put up for the World Listening Day today is almost 2 hours recordings of Congolese musicians from 1908 and 1909 that exist at the Ethnological Museum in Berlin here. I'm interested in that because, as I mentioned earlier, our works could also, at some point in time, could be referenced like this. The sound qualities of these recordings are not so good, but it's just a glimpse of the time in the past of where when these things existed. So that's how I find what we're doing today very important, not just in terms of trying to figure out what changes have gone in the past, but also the recordings we're doing today could also be at some point a reference material to a certain time and a certain period in a certain era. So basically, that's what the World Listening Day for 2016 is hoping to achieve. Get us out there to listen to our environment. We could see how, or we could detect or figure out how things have changed over in the past, how silence has eroded, because that is a major topic for me living in Lagos. Silence does not exist so much in the city, because the city has been taken over completely by machines, by humans, by construction. There is no, we don't have much green areas anymore. It still keeps expanding. Trees are being cut down, forests are being pushed away completely to make room for humans. So this is a very important theme for me, and this is a very important point for me, because we have to think about the future. And this is what I hope the World Listening Day will make people come to realize. Let's pay attention to our environment. Let's pay attention to our surroundings. How are we impacting our surroundings, and how are we impacting our environment? What are we doing? And hopefully we can have a clearer understanding of this, and it's not too late to change things. So this is what I hope for the World Listening Day to be able to achieve in many ways. I hope this goes around the world and we all find a connection to it. Thank you. I still have 19 seconds, but there will be a link at the end of the talk to a SoundCloud page where I put up the Congo. I called it Congo mixtape 1908 to 09, and I'll be refreshing it every day throughout the World Listening Day week. Is there any question? Are there any questions at the moment? Sorry, I just saw a question. I was asked to talk about silence as it relates to sound and power in your work. Spending time in Europe, what I find interesting is there's this whole law on noise abatation, and basically you cannot be loud here. And I find it interesting because what I hear most of the time is the sound of sirens, police, ambulance, and fire truck. You know, it's really about like only the state is allowed to be loud. You know, every other person cannot be loud in that sense. So it's really this controlled environment where the state is only permitted to be loud, but as individual, we cannot. I find that is interesting, and that is also something I want to explore in my work, you know, with regards to silence in relation to sound and power. It's still a current exploration, but I make that connection with the state being only allowed to be loud, and for the rest of us, or for the rest of the citizens not to be loud. So it's quite an interesting discovery for me, coming from Lagos, where loudness is a normal phenomenon. Like being loud is normal. It's not restricted only for states. I also saw a question. Can you talk about the role of archive in your work, and what is most exciting about the archive for you, and what are you finding? Well, the archive plays a very important role in my work at the moment, because I'm digging into these archive of the past to work with them in the present. I'm really interested in how the past conceptualizes the future. For example, what I'm doing with the African Union is investigating how how the speeches made in 1963 of what the future of Africa will be and trying to relate it to the contemporary, comparing it to what after 50 something years, if we have achieved that, or if we are still trying to achieve that or not. So I'm very much interested in, oh, my time is up. Sorry, my time is up. Yeah, if you know what this past, how I can compare what the visions of the future was in 50 years ago to what we currently find ourselves in. So the archive is very important for this research, and I'm also beginning to realize that my work with Lagos will be considered an archive at some point, especially where the city is changing rapidly. A lot of these changes do affect the soundscape of the city, and at some point we will not be hearing the sounds we hear of today. A very typical example is the sound of the bus conductors. I consider this sound one of the main sound marks of the city, where these bus conductors call out these bus routes, and that's how you know this is Lagos in this recording. So with the new introduction of LED displays in bus stations and in buses, the sound, the bus conductor will no longer be required. And this, unfortunately, will pull out this very important sound mark of Lagos completely from the soundscape. So these are the things I've been discovering over time, and I'm also realizing how important the recordings I've been making over time will be for the future. So yeah, and that's in connection to the question about the archives and what I'm finding about it. Thank you.